So today we're going to be making risotto, and the type of risotto I'm going to be making is a risotto Milanese. And that means that we're going to include saffron in this. I'm also going to include some sautéed shrimp for garnish. Now when we're talking about risotto, we oftentimes hear the term arborio rice. So this is arborio rice, and this is a short grain Mediterranean variety that is very starchy. What we are also going to be talking about is another variety of short grain Mediterranean rice that we're going to be using today actually, which is a carnaroli rice. And the carnaroli rice, for some reason, and it has to do with the starchiness of it, and it's called amylase, this will produce actually a creamier result. So we're going to take a look at that today. And what makes our risotto different from 99% of other rice dishes is those most other rice dishes you set it and forget it, meaning you can saute the rice if you like, but basically what you're doing is you're including the water or the liquid base with the rice, bringing it to a simmer, covering it, and setting it aside, or just setting it to cook. We don't typically watch that cook. So this is a stirred variety, so we're going to be adding our hot stock in increments along with aromatics and all kinds of other great stuff, and we're going to garnish this with sautéed shrimp today, but we're going to be stirring with each addition of hot stock and monitoring the progress of this. So this is a really good video demonstration so that you can see how to put together a proper risotto. All right, so we're going to get started, and I'm going to start with a little bit of butter and some olive oil, and I'm using 2 cups of the carnaroli rice, and I'm going to just start melting this down nice and gently, and we're going to get some shallots into our mix, into the sauté. And I like using shallots rather than onions or a mix of onions and garlic because I think shallots have the best of both worlds as far as flavor profile. And we're going to get plenty of oil in there because not only do we need it to sweat our shallots down, but we're going to need it to coat the rice because we're going to saute the rice before we start the finishing process, which is the addition of the hot stock. So I've got my butter and my olive oil in there, and I'm going to reserve a little bit of that in case I don't have enough later on. Right. So we're going to, like I said, we're going to start with our shallots, and I'm going to use quite a bit of shallots, as this is actually going to turn out to be quite a bit of products with a 2-cup batch. Also on the side here, I've got a mixture of chicken, vegetable, and shellfish stock because I'm pairing this with shrimp. I wanted to get a little shellfish stock in there, and it's nice and warm, and we've got that holding at about 180 degrees. And like I said, we're going to add that to our rice, stirring constantly in increments. All right, so now I can hear and see that all of our fats are melted and the water in the butter is kind of bubbling off. Now it's time to add our shallots, and I'm going to add about 2/3 of the shallots that I have. I'm going to save the rest for the shrimp. Let me get a little bit more in there. And that was 2 large shallots minced. All right. So we're just going to sweat this down, which means we're going to do it over low heat just to soften those shallots, get the aromatic qualities out of them. Then we're going to add our rice and saute that. With that, I'm going to add our saffron. And if you're not familiar with saffron, it is the stamens of the lotus flower, and it's most typically harvested in Spain, but you can also find it across the Mediterranean region. It is one of the most expensive spices on the market. A good quality saffron can cost you up to $100 an ounce, and we're going to use very little of it, by weight. It looks like a lot, and it's going to bring some really great qualities to our risotto. It's going to give it this beautiful yellow color, but it's also going to give it this wonderful earthy, floral, aromatic flavor. I absolutely love cooking with saffron. But it is expensive. And if you're looking for this stuff retail, you can find it at most Middle Eastern stores in, like 3-gram packs that are pretty affordable. And that's about 3 grams right there. Okay. All right, so our shallots are nicely sweated. It happens that fast. I'm gonna get our carnaroli rice in, and like I said, that's 2 cups. And we're gonna just saute this, get a little toast on it. We wanna get all of the rice coated with fat, and it's really important to do that because what that will do is the fat will bind to the starches on the exterior and give it a nice toast, kind of like making what we're really familiar with, the Spanish rice. And you should smell kind of a nutty, toasted rice smell before you start adding your other ingredients. So at this point, I'm gonna go in with our saffron. And I'm not going to add it all because that was a whole lot. And you can crush it up between your fingers, but this is the process called blooming the saffron. And what you'll notice down in the pot is that it starts to change color. Now I always like blooming saffron with oil and then with the liquid, because I think you get the most flavor qualities and color qualities out of it that way. Someone else may say something differently, but that's just how I like to try to do it. And one of the things that you'll see is these little red threads in there of the saffron, and it really is beautiful to see that. All right. The next thing I'm going to add is just a touch of parsley. And I just want to get about 2 teaspoons of parsley in there, and I'll add some more later to finish so we have a nice green color. I'm also going to get some fresh chopped thyme in there, and I want about a teaspoon of that because this is really going to add a beautiful savory quality. Get that stirred, and you can this smells amazing already. I'm going to get a little salt and pepper in because we want to season our products as we go. We want to season throughout the entire cooking process without overdoing it. Fresh ground pepper. Then the next thing I'm going to do in just a moment is I'm going to deglaze this with a little white wine. And I've got about 1.5 ounces of white wine that I'm going to put in here. And what that's going to do is bring some acidity and fruitiness to the finished dish. And it starts the liquid absorption really nicely. It's really important when adding wine to deglazing process like we're going to be doing to let it evaporate almost completely. Otherwise, what you end up with is a product that tastes like wine, and that's not what we're looking for. We're looking to bring the qualities, fruitiness, acidity, tang, all of that to this product without making it taste winey. All right, so now it's time for our wine, and this is going to vaporize very quickly. And there, you can't even see any wine on the bottom. All right, so now it's time to start our stock additions. I'm going to monitor my heat for just a minute, and I'm going to turn it down just slightly so that I don't have it too hot. And I'm going to start ladling in our hot liquid. And I'm going to add about 4 ounces at a time and stir. Now the first few additions go in rather quickly. 1, because the pan is hot, and 2, because the rice is really thirsty at this point. And it's time to add the next addition when you drag your spatula across the bottom and you don't see it encroaching in from either side. So that happened really quickly, and you're going to start seeing that yellow hue come out from the saffron being bloomed properly. So I'm going to get 4 more ounces in and continue to stir. And now that I've adjusted my heat and I've got that initial addition of the liquid in there, this is going to happen a little bit slower. And we don't want this to happen too fast because we're not going to get that beautiful creamy result that we're looking for from the process of simply stirring this. And you'll be able to see that the liquid around the rice grains is going to start looking creamy and thick because it's absorbing those starches and thickening up. So 4 more ounces. And always make sure you have plenty of stock. Make sure you have plenty of liquid. It's better to have extra than not enough, because if you run out of your addition liquid, what's going to end up happening is you're going to scramble to get liquid warmed up, or you're adding cold liquid, and just nothing good's going to happen from that. So now you can see that yellow really developing and that nice, beautiful, creamy texture. What we're gonna be looking for this dish to be finished is these individual rice grains to start looking translucent on the outside, with a little bit of white, that opaque white on the interior. And we want this somewhat al dente, because it's really easy to overcook this and make a mushy product. So we need to have that kind of just to the tooth bite. All right, so drag my spatula through, and it's still encroaching on from the sides a little bit. We're just going to give it a few more stirs. And when you're scraping or stirring, it's really important to scrape along the entire surface of the bottom and scrape down the sides of the pot or the pan that you're using, because all of those free starches that are combined with that liquid, they'll want to stick to the surface of the pan, and that's where they end up drying if we're not scraping, and we're leaving that flavor behind. So a couple more ladles full of our hot stock. And you see this beautiful yellow developing, and then a little bit of color from our herbs and our saffron threads. This is already looking pretty nice. This is that yellow color that we're talking about, and it's going to get more vibrant as we continue to cook, and it's really going to give a wonderful flavor to this. So we're just going to keep cooking this down and watching our heat. Turn it up just a touch. So we're getting this beautiful yellow hue developing more. And the great thing about that is you can see the little red saffron threads in there and the beautiful green of the herbs. And we're going to garnish this with more fresh chopped herbs at the end. Okay, so we're back with you, and we're just about ready to do our finishing on here, and I'm going to tilt the pan up so you can take a good look at that, and we've got that beautiful, nice yellow hue, and that nice creamy consistency happening in there. It's not quite done. I just checked a piece, and we're going to get one more addition done, and we've used almost all of our liquid, and remember, that was 2 quarts of liquid for a 2-cup batch of rice, and I'll probably have a little bit left over. This should be the last addition. I might need one more, but if we do, that'll be everything. So a minimum of 2 quarts for a 2-cup batch. Now this is a time-consuming exercise, but it's fairly simple, and you can really feed a crowd of people very easily. This is a wonderful dish, either a main or a side for a larger get-together, and 2 cups of rice goes a long, long way. Now you don't have to put saffron in it. You don't have to go buy anything expensive, other than the proper rice. This can be really anything you want. It can be vegetarian. You can add anything you want into this, which is one of the great things about risotto, is that it's so flexible. Now, if you're not really familiar with risotto is more of a northern Italian dish. So this is the Milanese from Milan. In the south, you tend to see more pasta dishes. In the north, you tend to see more rice dishes. So not to say that they're mutually exclusive, but that's just the kind of geographic breakdown, because there's more of the rice growing regions in the north. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and try a little piece of this, and to make sure that our texture and our consistency and our seasoning are where we want them to be. Okay, it's almost there. So I'm going to go ahead and do our last addition of liquid, and I'm just going to add everything we got. Set that aside and let that continue to cook, because it's got a good bite to it, but it's a little too crunchy at this point. So I'm gonna just get the last of that liquid in and let that finish nice and slow. I'm gonna get a little more seasoning in here, get a little more salt and a little more pepper. Not a lot, because if we season properly as we go, the final seasoning, we don't have to dump a bunch of it in, right? So just a little bit, about a half a teaspoon of salt and about a quarter teaspoon of black pepper, just fine. And then we're gonna go through the finishing steps. And the finishing steps are going to be we're going to add some more chopped parsley. We're also going to add Parmesan cheese and butter. And we need to do the additions of Parmesan cheese and butter off of the heat, meaning we're going to turn the burner off and we're going to stir that in really quickly. And that should produce a beautiful, wonderfully creamy texture out of this. We'll set that aside for a moment after we do that, and then we're going to cook our shrimp to garnish this with, and then we'll plate it up and be done. All right. And I just absolutely adore the color that saffron brings, and you can see that it's just amazing. All right, so I'm going to turn off the heat at this point, and I'm going to move it over to the center between the burners to where it's a little cooler. I'm going to add some butter. And when I say some butter, I mean a lot of butter, because who doesn't like butter? And the butter is going to help emulsify this whole thing and make it nice and creamy. And it's also going to help that Parmesan to incorporate smoothly without clumping up or sticking too badly to everything. And when you add the butter in the beginning, that room temperature butter, it'll kind of melt out and loosen up that starchy liquid structure that we've built. But not to worry, it will thicken back up when we add the Parmesan. Definitely, I want to get that butter all incorporated. And then we're going to do the addition of the Parmesan. And it's really important that you stir really well during this, in order to create a nice, light, fluffy, saucy consistency. And this shouldn't ever be thick and heavy. You always want a nice kind of rice grain with sauces in there. That was about 1.5 cups of Parmesan that we added, and we need to stir this nice and quickly, kind of almost like aerating it. And if you see the Italian chefs do that, they'll toss it in the pan to do that, and we can do that just by stirring vigorously and kind of doing a folding motion. There we go. And look at how gorgeous that is. That is amazing. We're going to let that sit for a couple of minutes after I stir in some more parsley. And I'm going to add a good amount of parsley because I love that green color and that beautiful fresh parsley flavor that it's going to add. And again, like I mentioned earlier, you can add whatever you want to this and you really get outstanding results. All right. So there is our risotto. I'm going to check it one last time for seasoning, and then we're going to move on to cooking our shrimp. That's really good. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to keep it warm on my grill top. I've also got a bowl, a serving bowl to put that in that is nice and warm. You don't want to put a hot risotto into a cold dish that's just going to cause it to coagulate and get kind of stiff and nasty. All right, so for our garnish, we're going to start with about 1/2 pound, 3/4 of a pound of shrimp that are peeled and deveined. I took the tails off. They look nice, but if you want to eat them with a fork, you're going to have to grab and pinch the tails off, so that's kind of not ideal. All right, so for the shrimp, we're going to do olive oil and butter again. I have a little garlic, a little white wine, and some shallots. and we're going to also be adding some parsley, thyme, salt, and pepper. So we're going to get our pan really nice and hot and start getting our fats in here. Right. There we go. I don't know if we're going to need all that butter, but better safe than sorry. Just like the risotto, we're going to get some shallots in there. We're also going to add some garlic, but I'm not going to add the garlic just yet. I want to soften up the shallots and let them kind of get their flavor into everything. I'm going to get a little salt and pepper into it at this point. Okay. Now I'm going to go in with the garlic. This is all really quick stuff. Smells great already. I'm going to get our shrimp in. There's my tongs. And we want to crank the heat up at this point and really get some good heat into these. I'm going to add some fresh thyme and more of that parsley. We want to be careful not to overcook these and get rubbery shrimp out of it. We're looking for them to change color and kind of curl up tight without drying up or getting rubbery. I'm going to put a little more salt and pepper in there at this point. A few more tosses. As you're getting close, you're seeing that color change happening, and you're seeing the structure of them tighten up. So at this point, I'm going to add some wine to that. And the wine's going to do a couple of things. It's going to, again, add some fruitiness, some body, some acidity, but it's also going to create steam that's going to help us help that shrimp finish cooking. And keep that flame really nice and high so that this happens quickly. All right, I'm going to turn that off and let that sit while I'm plating our risotto. I'm going to give our risotto a quick stir. And oh man, that looks awesome. See how beautifully creamy that is? All right, let's set that there. Get our plate. One more spoon. All right, we're going to bring this over here to finish plating. I'm going to get a paper towel really quick. And then just plate up our beautiful garnished shrimp on there. We'll just put them around the outside so we can see that beautifully cooked risotto in the center. And if you like, you can top this with some Parmesan cheese or whatever you like. There we go. So this is our risotto Milanese with sauteed garlic shrimp. So if you have any questions about making risotto, or you would like to see some other videos presented on different ingredients and techniques, please let us know. Like, follow, and share these videos, and we'll see you next time on Chef's Share.